Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to DreamWorks Switch to Life. And in today's video, we are going to be reviewing Abominable and the Invisible City, the TV show sequel to Abominable, the movie. And I really enjoyed it. This TV show was actually really good, especially because, well, for those of you who are like, I want an Abominable sequel, this should have you covered because it has a very unique and really cool story that really adds to the lore of the Abominable franchise. In fact, you can actually view the series, which has 2 seasons, each with 10 episodes, so 20 in total, as 2 4-hour movies, meaning that technically Abominable is a trilogy. So if you want to check it out for yourself, you can do that by streaming it on both Peacock and Hulu. Now, first off, let's talk about the animation. I would say that the animation is actually really good. Nowhere near as good as the actual movie itself, but again, this is made with the TV show budget in mind. But to be honest, it actually looks really good. I also really enjoyed the voice acting because I think a big help is that they actually got 3 of the movie voice actors to come back to play their characters, including Chloe Bennet as Yi and Tenzing Norgay Trainor as Jin, and we even have Yi's mother played by her movie actress. Unfortunately, the rest of the characters are kind of recasted, which even includes Pang. I'm not actually sure, but I think he was recasted because his original actor hit puberty, because he's supposed to be a 12-year-old kid, so maybe they actually got a kid to play him again. They even got rid of Everest's voice actor, which kind of makes sense, because you could pretty much replace him with anyone who can make a deep, gravelly voice. But 2 characters stand out in the replacement. Nai Nai, who was kind of my favorite character in the original film because of her funny lines and their delivery. In this movie, she has funny lines, but I don't know, they just hit different, which is kind of bad. As for Mr. Burnish, I didn't really like his character. He got his redemption arc in the first movie, and now he's kind of friends with the gang, but unfortunately, he's kind of reduced to comic relief, which I'm not really a fan of because it doesn't really seem like his character. He also sounds a little bit different, which again, they replaced his voice actor. But for the most part, he just uses his tech and wealth as well as gadgets to help out Yi and the gang, and unfortunately, he's kind of just doing his own thing where he's losing a chess match to a gerbil named Duchess from the first movie. Also, speaking of, I'm kind of a little disappointed that the whooping snake didn't make a comeback in this series. As for the music, I really enjoyed it. It's not really that great, it's not memorable, but it's really good and helps the plot move forward, especially when it comes to Yi playing her violin. So both the background music and Yi's playing is actually really good music. As for the story, I definitely enjoyed the story. This was actually really good for a TV show. So while the movie focused on one long journey to get Everest home, they kind of undo that and just Everest shows up in the first episode and is like, hey, I'm here to help. That's like the only critique I can actually give this though, because the rest of the series focuses on the gang going on adventures where they meet brand new mythical creatures. In fact, there's a lot that this series does for the lore of the Abominable franchise. Instead of just having Yetis, there's tons of magical creatures that exist, and they all have supernatural powers, which is really cool. Granted, there's only a dozen introduced, and I'm not kidding, there's actually 12 different species that are introduced. So in the first season, it's mostly just the gang going on adventures and trying to help magical creatures in secret. That's the key word there. But anyway, the first episode introduces Fang Wong, who I'm gonna go with is inspired by the Phoenix, except unlike the Phoenix, she doesn't light her body on fire. And it's said that she comes from the sun, which is a source of her powers. As for the second episode, they realize that the city isn't a great place for Everest, and he's overheating. And while they debate trying to get him to go home to Mount Everest, they come up with a solution where they ask Mr. Burnish for help, and he provides a cooling chamber where Everest can be happy and alive and safe, and also provides them with some cool tech that will help them on their adventures. And in episode 3, we're introduced to a Surakoi who lost his pearl because city officials took it thinking it was an ancient relic, and because of it, the city could flood if they don't get the pearl back from the museum. The origin of the Surikoi is that it was just a koi who swam upriver all the way to the heavens, and the gods decided to award him by turning him into a dragon. So not only is he big, but now he can also swim through the air, and he doesn't need water to breathe. In episode 4, we're introduced to the Minty-Con, who used to be best friends with a shop owner named Mr. Lung, who unfortunately went missing. This means that the Minty-Con, who used their shedding as special seasoning for Mr. Lung's candy, now had no purpose and no home. But luckily, the Creature Brigade, which is Yi, Jin, Pang, and Everest, ended up making a home for the Minty-Con in the sugarcane plants. And then there's episode 5, which I really loved because it helped Jin's character evolve so much.
Oh, totally forgot about my phone. I totally forgot about my phone. I really am a new man.
So the episode opens with Jin getting a doctor's coat, and despite the warning, he puts it on, and then it gets messy when a brand new mythical creature slobbers all over it. And this creature named Morty, which I don't really like that we don't ever know the species name of this guy. But anyway, Morty's saliva makes it so that Jin starts to turn invisible, and now nobody can see him. And the thing is, this guy loves to be seen. And what's made it even worse is that he has to prepare for a presentation where he's going to officially be given the doctor's coat for med school. Unfortunately, being invisible, he can't really do that. But then he realizes that he needs to help this poor creature named Morty, and the reason is Morty is actually pregnant. And by the way, despite being pregnant, Morty is still a he, so he's a dad. But anyway, after turning visible, Jin still decides to skip going to the presentation so that he can help Morty deliver the babies, which I thought was really cool because Jin is actually caring about his patients, which is really nice.
All this time, I thought what made this coat so special was all of the attention it brought me. I guess its real power is that it reminds those in need that help is nearby.
The episode ends with Morty going home, but in episode 6, it's revealed that one of his babies, Mini Morty, stayed behind. So we see the Creature Brigade try to tackle babysitting while also keeping up their human, normal daily activities. They struggle a lot with it, especially Yi, who becomes exhausted by the end of the day, and she begins to wonder how the heck her own mom kept up with raising Yi as a baby. Luckily, the episode ends with Mini Morty being returned to Morty and the rest of the family, and so it's on to episode 7 when Pang is trying to participate in basketball tryouts, and unfortunately he gets really superstitious and it makes it so that he doesn't make the team. Not really any new creatures introduced, but we learn a bit more about the Minty-Con and how they need a purpose. Then in episode 8, we're introduced to Todd the Toad, and while at first he just seems like a normal toad with only 3 legs, it turns out he's actually a magical golden toad that can grant wishes. Unfortunately, every time he grants a wish, a piece of himself goes missing, and he becomes exhausted and sick by the end of the episode. Luckily, Yi manages to use her magical violin to reverse all of the wishes, heal Todd, and then lets Todd grant his own wish of being returned home. Then we come to episodes 9 and 10, the 2-part season finale, where it's Chinese New Year and everybody is celebrating, including Everest, who manages to go around in the streets in public as a New Year's Yeti because, you know, everybody's celebrating with New Year's lions and dragons. My one regret is that we don't know which year of the zodiac this is supposed to be. Is it the year of the rabbit, the year of the rat, the year of the dragon? I don't know. Anyway, Yi is asked to give a performance, and she wants to play the song that her dad played when he was a kid and asked to play at New Year's Eve. So she goes to the temple to try to talk to his urn, which I guess is really cool because we get to learn a little bit more about Chinese culture. Sadly, we don't really get a lot of facts about Chinese culture, just tidbits here and there, and I don't really like that. I kind of wish we got a little more about Chinese culture. But anyway, day, a little kid shows up and takes away Yi's violin and then smashes it on the ground. So now she manages to fix the violin, but she broke her strings. So she asks Everest for some Yeti fur, but she can't find him. So she restrings with normal violin strings, but then she finds Jin and tries to go on an adventure to find Pang and Everest. And when they do, it's right as they're kidnapped by Nian. So in episode 10, it's revealed that Nian is a magical lion-dragon hybrid who, according to legend, comes to villages every year to terrorize the citizens and maybe eat some of them. And now he's kidnapping all of the magical creatures that were introduced during the first season. So Yi and Jin and Mr. Burnish try to go out into the woods to find Nian's lair, and it's there that they not only destroy his home, but in the process learn that he's actually a misunderstood creature who doesn't actually want to eat people, he just wants to not be lonely. Unfortunately, they did destroy his home accidentally, so he goes on a rampage in the big city, and the Creature Brigade have a final battle where they try to calm him down, and Yi manages to play her non-magical violin, and she uses her magical powers, which apparently she has, to connect with Nian and give him a big magical hug. And I really enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed how Mei and Nai Nai found out about magical creatures. Well, Mei found out. Nai Nai already knew about magical creatures, and I especially loved how Nai Nai has a sword. I mean, it's completely random, but it's awesome. It's actually mentioned earlier in the season when in another episode she wants to use it against a cabbage man who sells overpriced cabbage. Anyway, they all participate in the final battle, which isn't really a battle as much as a let's calm down and just chill. And when they do that, it's revealed that everyone in the entire world now knows that mythical creatures exist. So on to season 2, which takes place a week later, and during this time Yi has been trying to practice using her magic, which is hers alone. So she hasn't been playing her magical violin, and she's struggling a bit with her magic. Meanwhile, they introduce a new character named Wu, who is a social media influencer who wants to spread word out about the Creature Brigade and how if you see a mystical creature, you need to call the Creature Brigade. Unfortunately, he's not really there to spread awareness. He's just there to get views for having a creature show up on his channel, or maybe Yi performing her magic. Or maybe Sword Granny. He actually puts the team in danger when he destroys Nian's cave a second time, and then, well, they kind of dump him. In episode 12, we're introduced to a new mythical creature named Jeline, who is a jellyfish that's living in a ditch because construction workers built a dam that blocked her river. So now she's actually dying because she's not getting a lot of water, and what's made even worse is that the construction workers are trying to build on top of her ditch, and so the Creature Brigade is trying to find her a new home, but they realize that her old home is perfect just the way it is, and she shouldn't have to move because of humans. Humans should have to learn to work with the mythical creatures so that they can live together in harmony. It takes a little bit of convincing, but they finally manage to let the contractors know that they should work with Jeline, and in the end, they manage to build the building, and when they do, Jeline not only gives them a moat, so it's actually an attraction of sorts, but Jeline is also using her lightning powers to power the building, so she's saving a ton on the electricity bill. And I really love how the show says that we should learn to work with animals instead of trying to overpower them. That's really cool. Now, episodes 13 and 14 are actually a kind of two-parter, but anyway, in episode 13, we're introduced to a Kitsune. No, not the kind who transforms into a beautiful woman, just a normal nine-tailed fox who happens to have the power to hypnotize people by swaying their tails. She hypnotizes them so they willingly give up their most prized possession, which they think will make them happy, but in reality, she's trying to show them that they don't need the thing in order to be happy. And for the most part, she's right, but she tries to take Yi's violin, and the problem is that with Yi, her violin represents everything that makes her happy. Not only is it a gift from her deceased father, but it's also filled with magical creature essences, which she's been collecting to help boost her magic. And it also represents what she wants to do in life, be a helper for magical creatures. So she doesn't get the violin from Yi, and in fact, Yi manages to calm down and tame the Kitsune, and even gives her the name of Natalia. However, the Kitsune does manage to take Jin's med school book, and it's at this point that Jin starts to have a revelation. He doesn't really care about going into medicine so that he can study the human body. In fact, he's actually fascinated by studying the magical creatures that they come across, including Everest, when chasing Natalia, he actually ends up breaking his ankle. Bad for Everest, but good for Jin because it proves that he has a different kind of passion than going into med school. And in episode 14, we see him trying to struggle with balancing whether or not he wants to pursue his own dream of being a creature veterinarian creaturologist or becoming a doctor like his mom wants. And at the end, he decides to announce to not only the gang, but also his family that he wants to drop out of med school. But anyway, the actual plot of episode 14 is they need to find Natalia a new home. And they also need to have a meeting where they inspire the next generation of kids to become creature enthusiasts. Unfortunately, only one kid actually shows up, Lily. She lives in a rich apartment mansion and she falls in love with Everest and decides to take him on the tour of the city, and then they come home and it's revealed that she actually is stalking Everest and wants to kidnap him so that she will have a best friend with her forever. And so the Creature Brigade tries to rescue Everest, and when they do, Lily falls in love with Natalia, and she decides that she wants Natalia to be her friend. And the truth is, Natalia doesn't really mind all the affection that she's getting, so it's a win-win. Lily has a friend who will be with her forever, and Natalia has a good, loving home. In episode 15, a Qilin shows up, and Qilins, according to legend, are creatures of prosperity, and if you see one, you may be blessed with additional prosperity. And this, of course, causes a commotion where everybody in town wants to see Qilin. And while at first it seems like things are going well, it eventually leads to chaos. But I really love the message of this episode. Sometimes everybody has struggles and we all kind of need prosperity in our lives. But a lot of the times that prosperity can be aided through human connections, which is really good. As humans, I feel like we all kind of get caught up in our daily lives to the point where even if we want to help others, we don't even realize that we can. This is an important message not only for kids, but also for adults about how when you look for ways to help others, you can not only improve their lives, but also improve your own. But anyway, back to the main story where the chaos happens and Qilin goes missing, but it's revealed that Qilin is actually not a magical creature at all. Qilin is actually a robot. Yeah, wasn't expecting that my first time watching this. So Everest and Qilin get into a final battle, and Qilin literally loses a leg. And it turns out that this leg is made from parts created by Burnish Industries.
I can explain. The robot isn't me, just the parts. I may be selling tech on the black market now, but, you know, Duchess's beauty regimen is pricey.
Luckily, Burnish keeps a paper copy of all the stuff that he sells on the black market, which apparently he does so that he can remain rich after not kidnapping magical creatures. So they used the receipt to follow the buyer to his address, and it's revealed that the buyer is actually Mr. Lung, the same person who disappeared back during episode 4 of season 1, which I thought was some really good foreshadowing. But anyway, we learned that Mr. Lung used to work with the Minticon to make the world a better place by using the Minticon's powder, and he used it as seasoning for candy, which actually brought a lot of joy into the world. And for a very long time, he had a symbiotic relationship with the Minticon. He would give them a home and food as well as a purpose, and he would also give them love and affection. But over time, he got a little greedy and started to abuse the Minticon, making it so that the Great Watchers, who are essentially the gods of the magical realm as well as mythical creatures in general, decided to take away the Minticon. So he got a little bit jealous that Yi was now in charge of taking care of the Minticon, and he decided to get his revenge, and I don't really like his plan, because there's not really a plan.
What are you gonna do with them?
Whatever evil villains do with their monsters. Destroy humanity. World domination. Things your mother wouldn't approve of.
He's literally just being evil for the sake of being evil. I do not enjoy that. He has a pretty good backstory that sets up a pretty good villain, but unfortunately, his plan, there's no plan at all. He's just, again, being a villain for the sake of being a villain. At the same time that this is happening, Nai, who actually has a phone that she found in the wall that allows her to communicate with the Great Watchers, is sent on a bunch of errands that have absolutely no purpose whatsoever. At first, she thinks she's doing a mission that will help Yi, but then it's revealed that it's literally just sidetracking her from actually doing something important. So, in a way, Nai has some character development as well, and learns to grow a little bit closer with her family and not spend so much time on not important matters. She even asks for help from Mr. Burnish to get to the field so that she can help in the final battle against Mr. Lung, and the battle ends with Mr. Lung poofing out of existence, because apparently the Great Watchers have deemed him too evil to mythical creatures, and he's a legitimate threat. So, in episode 17, Jin and Peng are struggling with this, and they worry that if they do something wrong, they could poof out of existence as well. So they quit the Creature Brigade, and then Yi and Everest are on their own, and a brand new mythical creature falls out of the sky. A piece of meat. No, I am not kidding. A legit piece of meat falls out of the sky, and its name is Tai Sui, and apparently if it falls into your lap, you're cursed. And if you don't bury Tai Sui before the sun sets in the middle of the woods, then you are going to be forced to repeat the day over and over and over again. So Yi's going through a Groundhog Day, deja vu, time travel, time loop, whatever you want to call it. That situation seems to appear in almost every single TV show. While that's happening, Jin and Peng are off on their own adventure.
Since my mom cut my allowance after I dropped out of med school, I'm in desperate need of more hair product. Look at this. It's lost its bounce.
When a store clerk asks if they can help him find an egg that a bird laid in one of his shoes on a high shelf and then help hatch it into a baby bird. And they actually are a little worried about poofing out of existence while doing this, but then the bird hatches and they realize that they actually enjoy helping creatures a lot more than just standing on the sidelines, so they go back to Yi and break into her time loop, and thus the three of them make it so that Yi can finally bury Tai Sui in the woods. And now Yi is no longer reliving April 9th. She's finally able to move on to April 10th. During episode 18, the Creature Brigade goes to Mount Stayaway to camp in the middle of the woods. And while they're there, they encounter a monster named Yeren. And according to legend, Yeren is a head stealer. Although he doesn't actually steal heads, he just steals the hair off of your head and then uses it to add to his own hairy coat. But the Creature Brigade discovered that he's actually not a monster, he's a mythical creature who's just a little misunderstood. He actually enjoys being social with humans, he just has no sense of social skills whatsoever, and instead of being friendly, he's scaring them away. And because the campgrounds aren't making a lot of money, the city is going to tear down the forest. Luckily, the Creature Brigade helps him clean up the campsite, teach him some social skills, and make it so that people actually come visit Mount Stayaway, which is renamed Mount Stay-A-Day, and Yeren even becomes the unofficial ranger mascot, which is really good. During episode 9, the Creature Brigade ends up splitting up so that they can help out with a lot of problems that people are having with the magical creatures, like how Jeline is accidentally causing a blackout on the building she's supposed to be powering. Lily is using Natalia's hypnotizing powers to make a bunch of kids play in her apartment, and they won't go home, which is causing the parents a lot of stress. And also, Morty and his family are eating the crops of an orange farmer. humor. And so with all of these problems going on, it's just making the people more and more and more upset with magical creatures, to the point where Yi is actually upset with the people, and she even lashes out and tries to attack them with her magic. Everest steps in and takes the blow, but in the process is severely injured. The Great Watchers witness this and decide that humanity is no longer safe for magical creatures, and decide to take all of the magical creatures away. So they literally Thanos and turn into dust, and then are transported to the magical realm. And in episode 10, we see the repercussions. Humanity is left without magic, and because of it, the world becomes completely black and gray and white, and there's no color whatsoever. It's completely dull. There's no emotions whatsoever. It's no happiness, no sadness, no anger, just pure dull boredom, which is not that great. The only people unaffected are Yi, Ping, and Jin, and so they try to find a way to bring the magical creatures back, and they discover that they can get to the top of Mount Everest and find a portal to the magical realm, so they do just that. One thing that I don't like, though, is that unlike in the movie, they don't wear coats, so they're literally freezing to death, and the show doesn't even acknowledge that. So they go to the magical realm and they meet the Great Watchers, or rather Great Watcher, since it's literally just one goddess. And unfortunately, she says that I can't release the magical creatures to your custody. Luckily, they decide to break the magical creatures out of the magical realm and return them to the human realm. And when they do, magic is restored to humanity. So hooray! Except there's a problem. By returning all of the magic to the human realm, the creatures no longer have magic in themselves. They're starting to cease to exist. So the best way to describe it is like a battery. They're the batteries that provide the human world with magic, and unfortunately their charger is broken. So they have to find the charger and fix it, and they discover that it's actually a stone pillar that's at the top of Mount Everest. Unfortunately, it's a pile of rocks that was split apart thanks to the disharmony between humans and magical creatures. So Yi, by herself, for some strange reason, decides to go to Mount Everest to try to fix the stone herself. Unfortunately, she ends up freezing to death because she doesn't really have anyone with her. And so everybody shows up, and I mean everybody who was ever an important character in the series, including all the magical creatures.
Including that very annoying human holding that very appealing table.
And together, they use all of their magical powers to fix the stone, and thus, when the stone is fixed, magic is restored to the creatures, and magic is restored to humanity as a whole, and the world is saved. And it's at this point that Yi is summoned to the magical realm, where she has a conversation with the Great Watcher, who wants to offer her the gift of immortality. Yi has the chance to become a god, and she turns it down, because she wants to live a normal life where she can grow old and raise a family of her own. And the series ends with Yi dedicating the rest of her life to helping magical creatures and humanity coexist, which I thought is a pretty good ending. Now, one thing that I do hate is that every time they go to the Himalayas, they never meet any other Yetis. There are tons of Yetis in the film, only Everest exists in this series, so that's really stupid. But anyway, that's my review. Overall, the show was extremely good, not only because of its humor, as well as its high-quality animation, despite its TV show budget, not to mention the voice acting was really good, and the humor was amazing. But what really made it special was the character development that would happen for Yi, Jin, Nai Nai, Pang, and pretty much all of the characters, as well as introducing us to a dozen magical creatures. And yes, it's exactly a dozen. Now, some people might say, I want a season 3, and I am actually one of them. Problem is, I never actually expected to get a season 3. I always thought that the series was best as a 2-season series, and well, that actually was the case. We are not getting a season 3 ever. So because of that, I think that this is a really nice ending to the franchise. And if you've seen the review I made on the original film, you will know what I think about us getting a movie sequel. But what do you guys think? Make sure to leave your thoughts down below in the comments section, and also, what is your favorite magical creature from the series? I mean, aside from Everest, since we all know he's very important. My favorite is probably Natalia, since she kind of has that dark, mysterious past who both wants to do good while at the same time going about it in a bad way. So with that in mind, thank you guys for watching, and I hope that you consider becoming a member by going to the join button down below or my channel page, or you can just do the free option and subscribe. But with that in mind, I hope that you're staying safe out there, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye bye.
Good afternoon!
I'm very popular, y'all!
Ta-da!